Flipping the Table.
This is Michael, and it's Season 2 of Flipping the Table. This is a podcast featuring honest conversations about food, farming, and the future. I do this because I'm inspired by all the people you will hear. Some of them I've known for decades, and others I've just met. But each of them are creating the knowledge, the food enterprises, farms, and ranches that will make for a future that works better for us all. Hello, this is Michael Dimmock with Flipping the Table. It's about 8:15 in the evening on Tuesday, March 24th. I'm in my home in Santa Rosa, California, next to a crackling fire during the shelter-in-place declaration created by the coronavirus. I want to offer for you tonight a special episode, a special conversation with Alice Waters. Patrick and I felt that this episode was apropos of the moment, because with every crisis comes opportunity, and Alice's vision and mission to transform school food is a vision and mission essential to the future of this country if we hope to offer our children a brighter future. Alice, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today from your home in Berkeley. It's a crazy time. We're in the middle of this shelter in place. So how are you and how are the crew of Chez Panisse doing in this crazy moment?
I think it's very difficult for everyone in the hospitality business to think about this period of time. Our whole purpose is feeding people, and we can't do that. We really can't do that safely. People are trying, and I admire their efforts. I do. But it is very difficult to understand how to respect social distancing when you're preparing a lot of food in a restaurant to bring to someone's car. And I know that it makes us all incredibly sad and anxious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sitting here with Patrick, our producer, and we were talking earlier about how unprecedented this is. He was saying, when we were in school, we read about World War II and the Great Depression, but we were told it was never going to happen. But this is just like that. It's huge. It's a huge thing, what's going on.
It is.
And yes, appreciate your thoughts around that. And I do wonder, I have wondered about the health of those who are working in the restaurants, as I actually ordered some food out from a place the other day that I wanted to support, and I noticed the crew was all together, and I thought, oh my God, they're being exposed.
Exactly.
Yeah. So are you guys shut? Chez Panisse shut?
Chez Panisse closed last Monday, and we've been really trying to figure out how to take care of our employees in terms of health care, unemployment, how we can really attend to their needs. But then the bigger network of Chez Panisse includes, of course, Bob Kennard's farm and many, many farmers and ranchers in Northern California. And they are so vulnerable at this moment.
Mm-hmm.
That's why all of my real efforts are in trying to connect our network with the people who would like to have that food in their homes.
Mm-hmm.
That if we can sort of skip the restaurant making of food, at least at Chez Panisse at this moment, we could really help people think about cooking in their own kitchens and staying there.
That's a great. I am aligned because um, uh, Jim Reichert from Reichert Duck Farm, Sonoma Liberty Ducks, is a good friend of mine, and so I ordered $500 worth of duck the other day and went and picked it up. My freezer is full of it, but I made for the first time duck confit. I'd never made it, and it was a 5-day journey, and it was beautiful. And last night I had it with wild rice from White Earth Land Reservation. It was an absolutely delicious meal, which I ate alone, but while talking to friends on the phone. But it was great.
Exactly.
I hope a lot of people do that. It was really an amazing.
We couldn't serve our traditional Parsi New Year dinner, and so we had a lot of lamb that was ordered and left over, which part of which I took home. And again, I opened up my friend Nolifer's cookbook, the Bombay Kitchen, and I started cooking the lamb in different ways. And I think, last night we even had lamb tacos.
Great.
So there are many, many ideas in cookbooks, and it's where I'm focused right now, trying to feed my little family, my daughter.
Great. Good. Well, that's good to be with family for sure. Well, if you're up for it, I would like to get into some of these other issues, even amidst this incredible moment we're in, because this moment will end eventually, and hopefully the country will be in a better place as a result. And part of that better place may well include the ability to expand what you've been committed to for so many years of your life. So I wanted to see if we could have a conversation about school meals and how critical they are for kids, and your commitment to making those school meals into something different than they've been in the past. So would you be able to have that conversation now?
I would love to.
Okay, great.
I would love to.
Great. So this has been a passion. So tell the folks listening how you came to focus on school food. What was the journey for you around this?
I guess it began when I had a child myself, and I wondered where she would be going to school and what would she be eating at school. And I started talking about that kind of publicly. What are we feeding our children? What's happened to public education in the United States, and particularly in California? When I came to school here in the 60s to the University of California, K through 12 was number one in terms of academic excellence in the country. Mm-hmm. And now we're way down in the 40s. And so what happened? And when I've been talking about that, one of the principals of a school in Berkeley called me up, and he said, I'd like you to come and help us beautify and think about food at our school. And that was Martin Luther King Jr. Middle School, and that was, believe it or not, 25 years ago.
Amazing.
So I went over to talk to Mr. Smith, and we walked around the school, and we saw all this vacant land where there had been portable, classrooms at one time. And it had, at the beginning in 1921, when it was built, only 500 kids. But now they have 1,000 kids in this middle school that speak 22 different languages at home.
That's incredible.
So we walked around the property. It was, on a big piece of property, right? Could look out even to the bay. And I started just immediately imagining what we could do. I said, oh, we need a garden classroom there. And we need to build a new cafeteria there that can seat all the students. That we need to, and I just started thinking about my Montessori training that has been so important to me my whole adult life. And that the best way to learn is by doing it, doing it.
Mm-hmm.
She believed in that, learning by doing. And she also talked a lot about the education of the senses. Now, she worked, and this was a century ago, more now, in the slums of Naples and in India.
I didn't know that.
And she worked with, she worked with children that she felt were sensorially deprived. That's a very interesting idea that they, most of them, because of poverty and hunger. But I started thinking about the children in this country. And some of them are deprived because of hunger and poverty.
Yeah, well, the majority of California's kids are living in poverty, of school kids.
That's right, but we're all sensorially deprived because of a fast food culture.
Mm-hmm.
We aren't touching, we aren't smelling, we aren't tasting, we aren't seeing, we aren't listening carefully. And those are our pathways into our minds. And so I started to think about this with the principal of the school. And I said, oh my goodness, we need to have a garden classroom. Not to teach gardening per se, but to teach math and science and maybe even art in the garden setting. And then we could have a kitchen classroom where we could, again, not teach cooking per se, but have an interactive experience around food that could be a history class. And you could be learning about the Silk Road in India, and you could be eating a chickpea curry,
mm-hmm.
or some papadums, or some puris, and a spicy carrot salad. And so I just really was excited that this principal of the school believed in us.
Wow. He was a revolutionary in the education system. Yeah.
But I said, I told him my big plan of doing all of this and a free school lunch too. And he said I didn't hear from him for 6 months.
Blew his mind, yeah.
And then he came back,
mm-hmm.
and he said, Alice, I love your big vision. And I said, well, Neil, it's all or nothing. And he said, but Alice, please don't talk about a free school, a free organic school lunch yet, because I think it's going to be too shocking to people. Let's just begin with the garden and kitchen classroom. And so that's what we did. Mm-hmm. And about 15 years into the process, we had this great opportunity to help to design a cafeteria for that school, because the one that existed had really really fallen apart, and it couldn't feed all the students. They were eating out of a snack shack at the end of the schoolyard. And so Neil Smith introduced me to the architects, and the city of Berkeley was willing to fund a new cafeteria. So we built it as if it were going to really feed all of the students sitting down at two different times. And I get to really understand what it would take to do that, how big the kitchen would be, how recycling could be all incorporated, and how the farmers could bring the food directly to schools from the farm, and how they could be welcomed, how they could be really part of the edible education for the entire school.
Mm. Wow.
And here we are. Here we are.
Yeah, and so
And I would.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that I feel like every kid who has been part of this project over these years will always take care about how he or she is feeding himself or herself. And I think that the idea that they all, in some way, have fallen in love with nature. I always say it's kind of 6 weeks to kale, and they could all give a TED talk about the environment when they graduate in 8th grade. But just imagine if we began this edible education in kindergarten.
Yes, and that is the goal, right? And it's funny. I remember well our dinner with Gavin Newsom and Carlo Petrini at Chez Panisse. I think it was in 2007 when you invited the then mayor over to talk about hosting Slow Food Nation in San Francisco, which happened in 2008. And it's beautiful how these things emerge, right? So now he is our governor, and you have a relationship with him. And so I'm really, really interested to see, what you've been talking to the administration about, what you think might happen as a result of he and the first partner being in office now and committed to these kinds of things.
Well, I'm very excited about all of our politicians at the top, because the superintendent of schools, the Surgeon General of the state of California, the environmental, what do you call them? The
secretary. Yeah. Secretary of California EPA.
Of the Environment.
Yeah.
And the Secretary of Energy.
Yeah, and Agriculture, Karen Ross.
Yeah, Agriculture. Yeah. And absolutely of Agriculture, but also of Energy. And the governor and the first partner. They all really understand that it is that connection between food, agriculture, and climate that are vital to our health and to our communities and to a big time support of the people who take care of the land for the future. And I don't know, I have just put out, we call it our pledge for the Edible Schoolyard Project. And it's a pledge to our farmers and to the students. And we would like to serve every student a free, regenerative, organic school lunch. Every student. We would like to buy that food directly from the farmers and the ranchers so that there's not a middleman, so that they can have the experience that Chez Panisse has had during its almost 50 years of giving the money directly to the people who grow our food. And we go, take our compost back, pick up our food from Bob Kennard or from Mas Matsumoto or whomever. And there's they get all the money.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who take care of their farm workers as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the students are the ones who benefit, both in terms of their health, but in terms of building community. They're all seated at the table together. They're engaged in a conversation. They're empowered to be part of the, the cooking and the serving. It's empowering the people in the kitchens of all of the cafeterias to cook real food. Right now, they're heating it up. They're demoralized. So much food is thrown away. Kids pick and choose what they like, what they don't. And it's all food in general that's not good for them. Mm-hmm. So here we are with this enormous opportunity, especially in this agricultural space, to make a project that can demonstrate the worth of this idea. We could put people in business that made tortillas with organic corn or flour. And the schools could be the engine for this idea. So I'm particularly excited because the mayor of Stockton, Mayor Tubbs, would like to do this in all 55 schools in the city of Stockton.
Wow.
And he has already begun.
Good.
And we have a philanthropist who wants to support us, and we are beginning.
Great. So, is this something that would be the pilot for the state potentially?
Well, I feel like as good as Stockton is, as good as the state is. But we have some, I believe we're going to map them all. There's almost 700 edible schoolyard projects in the state of California already. Mm-hmm. And we know some of those very, very well, but they're all on our website, and people can download information for free anytime they would like. And we know that our farmers need our help. They need this. And we have 50-year-old organizations up and down the state that have been doing work in this realm for a very long time. I mean, even longer than 50 years. People like the NRDC, mm-hmm. the CCOF, mm-hmm. and CAF, the
Community Alliance with Family Farmers, yeah.
Yes, mm-hmm. yes. And I'm sure you can, and Patagonia, and mm-hmm. the list goes on. And we want to really figure out how we can really put in each person, each organization can do a piece of this. I'm hoping Google wants to map all the organic regenerative farms in the whole state, mm-hmm. and ranches as well. Mm-hmm. And we're hoping the NRDC will do their films about I'm stuttering, but I keep thinking about that one that they did with Meryl Streep on Alar and Apples.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when she got on, remember that one, Michael?
Yep, I do. Yeah, it was during the early slow food days. Yeah. Yeah.
It took about a week to have get people to think about children and the pesticides that were being put on the apples. Mm-hmm. Well, we need them to help us, and I think that they will be an incredible partner. But there's so many environmental organizations in this state that it's exciting to think of working on this enormous project.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but but we can do this, and it's the hopeful scenario that children will bring this home to their families, that we can inspire some kind of victory garden movement at this moment in time where we can grow our own food.
Wow. I love it. I think it's, we need it. And the big question is how to do it. And I guess what you're talking about is getting enough people behind it to create the force, the political force required to get there.
Yes,
And
but it
go ahead.
but it's not having one organization
Uh-huh.
try to oversee all of it.
Yeah.
We all have to understand the mission and the values associated with it. But then people have to say, I will take care of this piece. I will take care of that piece. I think about the way we addressed the AIDS epidemic way back when. We didn't know really what happened until we laid out the quilt on the mall in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know how many people were engaged. We knew that LA and Hollywood was doing the PR. We knew as restaurant people that we were raising money, that New York was working with people in the hospitals, that Texas was doing research. But we didn't know until it happened. And that's the exciting part about this, is that we're putting a puzzle together and we all are putting a piece in.
Yeah, that's a very nice metaphor, actually, the idea of the quilt, all the pieces,
Yes,
all the
the quilt
patches.
is
Yeah.
beautiful. All
Yeah.
the patches.
Yeah.
And everybody has its special materials and sews it by hand.
Uh-huh.
And then it happens.
Uh-huh.
And so we're going to need parents to come in. I always wanted the parents and friends of the school, maybe older people who need a school lunch, to come in and shell peas with the kids. Well, or with the food service
Mm-hmm.
folks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then they can eat lunch with the students. But there are a couple of things that I know need to happen for sure. We cannot bring food in from the outside already made.
Mm-hmm.
That we can't have that sort of fast food lineup to feed students. We need to sit down at the table. We need to have the aroma of food being cooked in the kitchen, the aroma of squash roasting that can perfume the school dining room.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have seen this happen with an organization in Richmond and Marin called the Conscious Kitchen, where they just started buying food from the organic producers right away. And they made a gymnasium into a cafeteria dining room by putting beautiful posters of food up on the side and putting tables together and the tablecloths on. And this isn't difficult. It's just that the fast food culture has told us students don't like it. It's too enormous. There aren't kitchens. There aren't dining rooms anymore. Just buy from us. And we believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not true.
Mm-hmm.
It's not true. We can do this. We can cook simply. We can cook with great diversity to reach out to all the different cultures. We can, and I'm writing a book about that right now, so I know that it's possible to buy food, even retail organic,
Mm-hmm.
and make a school lunch that fits into the USDA reimbursement.
Wow, that's fantastic
Yes.
news. That's good news. Because, well, the thing that's occurring to me as you speak, as I listen to this, is that I mean, going back to how we started, the crisis we're living in right now is a paradigm shifter potentially. It could break people's frames that have kept them thinking that the fast food message was the right message. I mean, we
Yes.
potentially it could be a real opening for this and many other ideas that put us into right relationship to the earth and to each other. And so, do you? I mean, obviously, it's this everything that's going on now is impacting the schools. So, going back to Stockton, are you seeing that? Um, you said there were some 50 something schools there. I mean, is this something that's going to roll out over the next year, the next 2 years? What's your feeling about that?
Well, of course, I'm not willing to wait.
Mm-hmm.
I want to have this happen as soon as it can.
Mm-hmm.
And it probably begins with the foods that we can get
Mm-hmm.
uh, seasonally. It's very important that we buy and eat food that's seasonally ripe. I know this is difficult in different parts of the country, but we used to do this not so long ago, maybe as recently as 60 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
we did this. We did this in my youth in New Jersey
Mm-hmm.
when I grew up. We never had tomatoes except in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And we loved them
Mm-hmm.
in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
So we canned apples, we canned rhubarb. We had a victory garden. My parents had it from the war, and they never let go of that garden.
Mm.
Even when they moved to California, they planted another one because they knew it was the most affordable way to eat and the most delicious way to eat.
Mm-hmm.
So that idea is terribly important, and if we can begin to win people over, which is the slow food mantra that I deeply believe, with taste,
Mm-hmm.
with taste,
Mm-hmm.
that when you eat a peach that's ripe, you never forget it. You want it again. Mm-hmm. But we have found in the Edible Schoolyard Project that kids will eat just about anything that they grow themselves, they cook themselves, they spice it themselves. They'll eat anything. And it's just a matter of that empowerment and that, just going out in the garden and picking your own raspberries. You very quickly know which ones by the color are the ones that are the tastiest. Yeah. And so we want that experience to happen in Stockton. Mm-hmm. We just had a big party there, gathering everybody that could be a potential partner. Mm-hmm. So it was not just the school board and teachers and the political people and the head of food service and all of those folks who would naturally be part. But we brought in farmers, all of our favorite farmers from around the state, and we had people that were environmentalists who are working on city planning. We had artists that came, and it was a real a cultural experience to eat together. And we made tortillas, or I should say cosecha, made tortillas right there on the spot. And we had a Mexican-inspired meal. But the room was perfumed. And it felt like a happening. Mm-hmm. And I think every person that was there will remember it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And want to come back for the next gathering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's slow food. That is slow food, right? I mean, that's how you bring
slow
people.
Food.
Yeah,
that's
slow
exactly.
Food. Exactly. Beautiful.
Indeed.
Well, so, well, I want to talk a little bit about the Alice Water Institute for Edible Education, because this seems connected in my mind, because I've read just a bit about it on the UC Davis website and saw some of the press releases. But could you talk a little bit about it? Because I think there must be a connection here between this need for an educational system that embraces food in the way that you're describing, and this new institute. Can you talk about that? And it's which you've based in Sacramento, which I love because you're right next to the Capitol there, and that's going to get us to our final portion of this conversation, which is about maybe 2021 in Sacramento. But talk to us about the institute.
Well, the institute really came about because of a very enlightened Chancellor Mays at Davis.
Mm-hmm.
And there is this piece of property that's owned by Davis. It's called Aggie Square in Sacramento. And he was proposing a sustainable campus. And he asked me whether I would consider having an edible education institute in my name. And I was pretty overwhelmed by the thought of that and very, very excited by it. But I asked him right from the beginning, I mean, are you ready to really go all the way? Is this something that's being embraced by the entire University of California at Davis?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, let me bring all the deans and all the people that are involved to have lunch at Chez Panisse, and let's talk about it.
Mm.
And they came.
Mm.
And then I went to Davis, and then they cooked for me.
Mm.
And I've never been to a university, and I've tried at many places around the country and around the world to engage the presidents and the food service directors. But this is the very first time that I have ever been in line with all of my values.
Wow.
All of them.
Yeah, good.
And already they know about Full Belly Farm. They know River Dog, all of our people that we've been involved with
in the
for
Cape
a very
Valley.
long time.
Yeah, great.
And it's their food service needs are enormous. And maybe they will be engaged in growing food on some of the large pieces of land in and around Davis to supply the needs of the university and the community of Davis. I know a lot of people that have been working in this place of farmers markets and organic farms for a long time. So I'm not worried that we'll have a lot of help when the time comes.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm hoping that building, and I get to design it myself. So I want to have it be beautiful on the inside, inspiring around natural materials, around wood and tiles and windows and light. I want there to be a beautiful water fountain right out the door where students can gather and drink and commune. And I want a cellar in it, but a beautiful brick cellar so that we can store vegetables, over the winter, the apples, the pears, the squashes, and some wine as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I want it to be a place where we can actually, feed maybe as many as 350 people, where we could teach with an open kitchen, where there's no back of the house, where everything is really thought about in terms of inspiring the people that work in that space. And so I'm extremely hopeful that this can come to pass.
Wow, it's a beautiful vision, uh, and Davis would be the place. I mean, as you know from the world that we work in, that there have been a lot of people that have been critical of UC Davis. I've seen a lot of changes over the years. I work with Tom Tomich at the UC Davis Ag Sustainability Institute, and I have seen a lot of good things going on. And I know, that many people see that institution as not being progressive enough around agriculture. But so when I read this, I was encouraged because I thought, okay, this is part of this emerging momentum I see for
Yes.
change, and maybe this will be catalytic for the institution.
Well, I hope it is, because the whole University of California could take the lead on this, really regenerative, sustainable. Now, I'm not using that word sustainable because we don't want to keep things the way they are.
Mm-hmm.
As Ron Finley says, you don't want a sustainable bank account. You want a regenerative one.
Exactly.
I love that.
Yeah.
But that's what we're talking about. And the fact that we could address climate right away by doing this, supporting those people who farm that way.
Build soil.
And at the same time, we could be rebuilding our immune system. We could be eating food that's incredibly good for us.
Which is so
that
critical.
That is deeply nourishing. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so exciting that we could do both things at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Well, good. This is so, and the I'm glad this is going on, and I will definitely follow with great interest the development of it, and with great hope for it as you're expressing. And I want to move to one last thing now. I want to. I mean, obviously, the place that we really came together was through Slow Food, and you were instrumental in 2007 and 8 getting together the Slow Food Nation event in San Francisco, which really, I think, for the first time put the food movement on the front pages of the New York Times in a big way. I mean, it became a story that has been followed by our culture and all the different institutions of the media since. And it was a watershed moment. And slow food in the U.S. is gone. It's had its ups and downs, and has been trying to catalyze some major activity and kind of a rebirth through its event in Denver. Slow Food Nations has been going on for a few years now, and I know that we've both attended that. And I'm just curious about this idea of a 2021 Slow Food Nation event in Sacramento. I know that you're deeply engaged in talking to people about that. I've been talking to people about that. I'm very curious about your vision of how that could all come together and what you see the value and importance of that might be in the coming year.
Well, it's a wonderful vision out there. Mm-hmm. Because Carla Petrini has always wanted a terra madre in the United States. Mm-hmm. And
we should just say for our listeners, that's the big event that happens every 2 years in northern Italy and Torino, where thousands of farmers from around the country come, from around the world, and all these different cultures come and share information and knowledge and their products for the world, really. And thousands of people come, tens of thousands. And it's an incredible, it's actually hundreds of thousands, and it's an amazing 3 or 4 day event, and I love it. It's one of the high points of my life is going to those events. And so anyway, he's wanted to do that here.
It feels like the real UN, doesn't it, Michael?
Yeah, it feels like the real UN. Yeah.
It just feels like you are having such a multicultural, from 156 countries, farmers come.
It's beautiful.
It's unimaginable that they can get to Torino.
Yes.
I'm so worried about that for this year.
I know.
Surely it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm a little worried about the idea of Terra Madre of the Americas, because that's what we were imagining to happen at the end, the last weekend, September of 21. And we wanted to bring everybody up from Brazil and Mexico and down from Canada and gather in Sacramento to connect the dots between food, regenerative organic agriculture, and climate. Climate being number one. And we felt like, what better place? Gavin Newsom told me, in fact, that he was edibly educated by the event of slow food in San Francisco. And that he was completely excited that we would think to do this in Sacramento.
Great.
So I have been there a number of times. We looked at the King Stadium, amphitheater, arena, I guess that's what it's called. 17,000 people can fit in there. I'm not sure we're ready for 17,000 in Sacramento, but we want to make a table that goes from the Capitol to the Sacramento River.
Ah, beautiful.
And we want to feed the farmers and the teachers who feed us. And if we could accomplish even just that, it would be amazing. But I'm working with Sarah Wiener of the Good Food Awards, and she would certainly like to bring people from across the United States who are producing products that are good, clean, and fair. And maybe we can do a tasting in Sacramento at that time. But we want to bring everyone who really is part of this big picture and make a statement in this very important time.
Well, I love it. I'm on board to help. I think it's a really important
I'm
thing to
counting
do.
on you.
I do think it's an incredibly important place to do it, and we have the right administration, the context, the world, what's going on now. I mean, my God, besides the complications around social distancing, but hopefully we'll be past it by then. It would be wonderful for this to happen, to add more momentum to this call for change in the world that needs. And I love the idea of a dinner that brings together the teachers and the farmers and honors them. I mean, one of the things that was always beautiful about Terra Madre was the honoring of these small farmers from around the world. They never got that kind of attention or respect or love from such a huge number of people as they have through Terra Madre in Torino. So for us to do something for the teachers and the farmers here, I'm all on board for that. I think that's a fabulous idea. Yeah. I know Patrick Mulvaney is really supportive and wants to see this happen and help, and so it's a good thing. And I heard Darrell Steinberg, the mayor's, very interested and supportive. So
yes, he is, and we really want to talk about that idea, which is really an international idea, that schools could be the economic engine to support the small farmers locally who practice organic regenerative agriculture. That is the ways that I think we're going to feed ourselves in the future. And so why not really demonstrate its power, the power of food to change the world.
Yeah, and wouldn't it be beautiful? I remember you did this last time. If you could get the governor to put a garden in the garden out there in front of the Capitol, a food garden, it'd be really cool.
I'm sure he's ready to do that. But we do want to do something, and I would love everybody's ideas. We do want to be the change we want to make. I mean, yes, maybe we could do a march that's led by Dolores Huerta from Davis to Sacramento, or maybe we could plant 10,000 trees someplace. Something to do, something
or hedgerows,
grow.
2 miles of hedgerows, yeah, something like that. That'd be great.
Something that produces something edible.
Yeah,
and we could do this, and we want to plan for that. We don't want to just come with all of our hand power and not have accomplished something.
Well, maybe we could get a law passed at the legislature that week that funds the edible schoolyard vision for the state of California. I mean, that would be amazing.
Hey.
We should pass a sweetened beverage tax and use all the money to fund this education program. I mean, that you're talking about. That would be fantastic. So, well, Alice, this has been so enjoyable. I'm really happy that you stay in the fight. The thing that's always amazed me about you is that it's true you're a chef and you're a cook and a restaurateur, but really I've always seen you as a creative activist, as someone who has catalyzed more than anyone else a change in our food culture in the U.S. So I'm really grateful that you are energized as ever and focused on this, because I think this will to achieve the vision that you have for the California educational system and for our kids. Would be monumental. And so thank you very much. Hey, this is Michael. As you know, Flipping the Table is sponsored by Roots of Change. You can keep our program going by making a contribution to Roots of Change through our website, rootsofchange.org.